thank you, first of all, for this very courageous film. And there is something that is even nicer for us today, that you brought Quais with you, that he's able to attend. Please welcome Quais to the stage. Quais, thank you for coming. Sean, I'm first of all really curious about how you met up, how you hooked up. Is it like in an internet situation, or some hints by friends that you would need to meet Quais?
Well, on a dodgy internet site. It wasn't quite that seedy, unfortunately. I was trying to make a film in Syria, and it had fallen through, but in the course of trying to make this film in Syria, there was a couple of people I came across, and I was asking them for help finding good characters in Syria, and they said, well, what are you looking for? And I gave them a rough idea of what I was looking for. And they said, well, there's no one like that in Syria, but there's this guy I just met in Yemen. And I said, well, I've just got commissioned for Syria. I can't go to Yemen. And then I met another person about 6 weeks later, and she'd stayed at this hotel and said about this guy as well. So two people that didn't know each other had recommended this guy. And then this film I started to make in Syria kind of fell through in a big way, by which time I was commissioned. So I actually came home for Christmas with the kids and then said, look, I've got to go to Yemen to check this guy out and try and make this film without consulting the BBC.
So Quais, I think for you, this is a very different experience, suddenly becoming a person in a film. How did it feel when Sean approached you and said, let's do this together? What was your feeling about it?
To be honest, in the beginning it was a little bit scary, but it was a honor and pleasure to show a true story from what exactly was happening in the country. And it was honored to meet this brave guy, that he rescued himself. I mean, he was in risk, to be honest.
Yeah, of course, the whole situation escalates as you are filming, and you're right in the middle of it. How did you manage, Sean, with the material, with the stuff you shot? In the film, there's always this talk of the Secret Service police, the investigators coming to look for journalists, kicking journalists out. How was your working situation with the film? You were like a tourist, or?
I was a tourist. My cameras, two cameras, are still in Yemen. I couldn't get the cameras out. I left a copy of the material on a hard drive and put everything else on my laptop on the computer, and then put it in the waste paper bin on the desktop if ever you get stuck. Well, anyway, they never checked the waste paper bin on the laptop. They're not that intelligent, as he says in the film, right?
Okay, let's open the discussion to the audience. If there are questions, please go ahead. Yeah?
Thanks God that he's already kicked out. He just now in the recycle bin of the history. He's not anymore a president. And the country will see a better future soon. I hope after the 21st of February, after the elections.
The question was what the political situation is in Yemen right now, and maybe if we move to the next question then.
Consequences
the question was whether there was any consequences of Quais being in this film, like the danger of being depicted in the film.
Well, the great danger was from two parts. One was from my wife, because she was pissed off of being, she was afraid that something could happen to me. And the other danger was from they're not intelligence, they're idiots of the government.
Yeah, in the front.
I have found it quite fascinating to observe this transformation process of an individual person from like being passive towards a political circumstance, and then at the end like being quite active here. I don't know whether this is a question or not, but to both of you somehow like maybe as a filmmaker can talk about also Quais as a person. Like how was this? Can you maybe describe a little bit this transformation between
The question is about the character development, the transformation from being a rather passive person at the beginning of the film and becoming more and more involved. And the question is to both Sean and Quais, so maybe Quais, if you would answer about the transformation, about that feeling.
Well, to be honest, in the beginning I was not against anyone, not against the opposition or against the government. I was a person who lived his life peacefully. I didn't care about politics in the beginning. But I thought it's just demonstrations in the morning and everybody go for lunch, then chew cat at home and nothing will happen anymore. But when I went there, and the big change really, which affected me and in a positive way, it was the Dignity Friday, the 18th of March, the massacre of killing over 52 people. And this made a positive change into my life. It's not just into the country, in everything.
Excuse me, maybe Sean can answer too.
I actually think it was something else. I think when we got in the camp, what you take for granted was this kind of Woodstock, Glastonbury atmosphere. It's just incredibly unusual to see women partying together with men in this very sort of ancient tribal culture. And what they'd kind of done themselves, spearheaded by the youth and the students, would set up their own. It was like stepping out of Yemen. You know, that was, I think, the revolution in itself, what this community of people had made around Change Square. It was incredible. And I think that was one of the, because I think people had ideas of the beards and the fundamentalists are in there, and they've also got Kalashnikovs, and the government were putting out all sorts of propaganda. But the truth of what was going on in there was, and I think a lot of young people have just been frustrated culturally in Yemen. I mean, the problem, I think, isn't a political difficulty in the same way that they have, say, in Syria. It's more culturally difficult for the youth in Yemen, and I think that's where they want change and progression. Maybe they want to see some female faces as well. I wanted to meet his wife. That was just very frustrating.
The next life.
Please.